Hey everybody, this is Kai Marin, and I got an interesting story here today. Frieren director voices concern on overseas anime fans' bias towards certain popular trends. Now, let's go through the quote here. I've had the opportunity to attend overseas conventions and interact with overseas fans, and I have a vague feeling that the Japanese anime that overseas fans go crazy about may be a little biased. Popular things are, as to be expected, popular, but a large current forms for those on the creative side. I think this is also a situation where a disconnect could be born between us and the audience. Because the current is so strong, if we focus too much on it, only that aspect becomes emphasized as anime's defining characteristic. Before it gets to that point, I feel it's important to share anime's diverse appeal with the world. I have a desire to create works that can draw the world's attention through a variety of approaches. Now, as he's saying here, look, anime has been getting more popular overseas for years now. Like I said over here, Anime Industry Report shows overseas anime market is bigger than the Japanese one, but is this a cultural tipping point? And while this might on the surface seem like a good thing, it actually will have and does have and has already had some adverse effects on the industry. And he sort of talks about it in this. He doesn't really say anything super specific, but he's basically saying, look, overseas fans like a certain kind of anime, and this will, sort of lead to a more, homogenized sort of landscape, more homogenized products to appeal to these overseas anime fans who, like certain shows. And like I said, this brings up a lot of unfortunate sort of, unfortunate sort of trends because while anime had been produced specifically for a Japanese audience for decades, these days most of the revenue is coming from overseas. And, you make money where you make money. It's only natural that these anime companies are going to start trying to appeal to these overseas fans more and more. And this is a problem because, I like anime because it's Japanese, And look, you already see this happening. See, Sony's Crunchyroll makes layoffs as it restructures to lean into international growth markets. Kadokawa CEO, and Kadokawa is one of the biggest anime companies and manga companies. Kadokawa CEO Natsuno Takeshi eyes diversification, Taiwan expansion. Sony becomes largest shareholder of anime powerhouse and From Software owner Kadokawa. Kadokawa has a whole freaking page on their website about global expansion. Oh my god, they even have here expanding licensing globally for intellectual property developed overseas. And even here, Kadokawa announces global, and this is very interesting. Kadokawa announces global wordless manga contest. New competition seeks global art talent, offers cash prizes. And not all manga has to be from Japan. Major manga publisher Kadokawa looks for new manga artists overseas amidst labor shortage, which, okay, that's pretty bullshit, but. So not only is the anime industry starting to market anime towards an international market, they're trying to produce anime and manga internationally too. And look, you'd be a fool to say that this isn't going to have an effect on the industry. I mean, one of the reasons why I love anime is because it is Japanese. I love anime for what it is. And it's made by Japanese people. If you start making anime for non-Japanese... Yeah, anime is made by and for Japanese people. If you start making anime by and for non-Japanese people, it's just going to change. That's a fact. And while you can argue whether or not the change will be negative, it at the very least will be different. And anime will, over time, start morphing into something foreign, weirdly enough. Both to the Japanese people and to anime fans. And we can argue how far this will go. And like I said, this was kind of just an inevitability, and I don't really know if there's a real way to fight back against this. The only hope is for, the new international anime fans to eventually drop anime, because I'll say this, most international anime fans, most anime fans that exist now aren't really anime fans. These guys aren't weebs, they're not otakus, they just watch anime because it's popular. They don't actually like or care for the medium at all. And this really started with, the pandemic. So you can go over here to Google Trends to get an idea. Anime maybe hovers around 50. Then you get here to early 2020, when the COVID started, and it skyrockets because, everyone's locked in their house. They turn on, you know, they watch frickin' My Hero Academia on Netflix or whatever. And another thing why anime is big in Japan and internationally is just because a lot of Western media just sucks ass now. I mean, who the hell likes all this new Marvel slop and Disney demakes, am I right? But anyways, a lot of these new anime fans came during COVID because, you know, everyone was locked in their house binging Netflix. And you can see the same kind of thing with Crunchyroll. 2020, it frickin' sparks up massively and has still been pretty high. But yeah, like I said, so these people all came in during COVID, and that might not sound like a bad thing, but like I said, these people are mostly tourists. They don't actually care about anime. They don't actually like anime. They watch it because it's popular. And catering to these kinds of anime fans is just going to lead to, you know, soulless garbage slop, which is absolutely what I do not want. And you kind of already see this a little bit. Like, fan service is kind of a big example. Fan service in general has been getting way tamer in anime recently. You know, you get less ecchi shows, and the fan service you still do get in shows is, you know, a lot tamer than what there used to be. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is to appeal to to a more, you know, global audience. Because a lot of these Western anime fans bitch about fan service all the fucking time. But anyway, I want to give you guys some examples of tourists like, yeah, this was making the rounds a while back here. Let me rewind.
A male.
And this sort of just gives you an example of how these people are. All right.
Okay, let's listen.
What is an anime trope that you're tired of seeing?
Harems with a male MC. I'm tired of it. I don't want to see men walking around getting girls. I want to see girls walking around getting girls. Yeah. Where are the Yuri harems? Where are they at? You know how, like, SAO is a harem, right? But it's a kind of family-friendly-ish, like it's a, you know, mainstream anime. I want a girls' girl anime that's harem-based, that is, like, mainstream and, like, friendly and romantic. That's what I want.
So, it might not sound so bad on the surface, but the whole thing is that look, one of the beautiful things about anime is just how varied it is as an industry. You know, you look at the Western cartoon industry, right? And you basically got, like, comedies for kids, comedies for adults, and that's kind of it, you know? You know, you have other stuff, like you have, you know, Invincible, and, you know, some other, you know, whatever. But, like I said, it's mostly just a bunch of comedies, right? Anime is completely different. Basically, any taste you have, you can find an anime for it, you know? And guess what? There are Yuri harem shows. Okay, I asked ChatGPT, I got Valkyrie Drive Mermaid, Kana Memo, and look, I found this whole ass list on my anime list of, like, these shows. And look, there's not a ton. You know, you wouldn't expect there to be a ton. You know, Yuri harem is a niche of a niche, but it exists out there. And look, if she was a real anime fan, she wouldn't be going on there and be like, we need mainstream Yuri harems. Look, there's plenty you can watch. But the whole reason why she's doing this, why she's saying this, is because she doesn't want to watch a Yuri harem. She wants to watch a mainstream Yuri harem. Because she doesn't actually care about anime. So she doesn't actually care about seeking out and watching what she wants to watch. She just wants to watch the mainstream slop. And she wants the mainstream slop to appeal to her specific tastes. You get what I'm saying? She doesn't want to appreciate anime for what it is. She wants anime to morph into what she wants it to be. And pretty much this is how all these tourists are. Because they don't actually care about the medium itself. They don't actually care about the medium itself. So they don't respect it. They don't assimilate into the culture. They don't respect the traditions. But they just demand it to change to their own sensibilities. And there's a lot of examples like this guy's fucking crashing out over fucking anime figures.
If you own this, you need to be locked up. If you ever put something like this in your cart, you need to be locked up. If you see this and don't see a problem with it, you should probably seek some help. Now, I understand this has always been a thing in the anime community, but at some point we have to draw a line somewhere. Y'all tried to say I was the problem when I said people who buy the half-naked Frieren statue are weirdos. Because Frieren looks like a teenager. Y'all try to use the excuse that, oh, she's thousands of years old. No, she still looks like a teenager. They embark on their journey,
Oh my god. Well, I'm not going to watch the rest of this shit, but this guy is literally just going on here, basically calling you a pedophile if you buy a Frieren statue. Which, by the way, Frieren, I mean, I guess you could say she looks like a teenager. She really more just looks like a young adult. Like, she just looks like a petite woman, basically. And even Nezuko, I mean, yeah, you're definitely a pedophile if you buy a figure that looks like this. But this is the whole thing. Like, this kind of stuff has always been in the anime community. People have been buying these kinds of figures for years, for decades. And then you have all these new anime fans who don't care about anime, don't care about the culture, come in and pearl clutch over this kind of stuff. And like I said, look, these kinds of anime fans, maybe they're a minority, but they're a very loud one. So, you know, my concern is that the Japanese, you know, the anime producers hear this stuff, and then they are starting to produce anime to appeal to the tastes of these kinds of people, you know? And look, there's tons of these kinds of anime traditions that people hate, that these kinds of tourists hate. You know, tourists hate fan service with a fucking vengeance. You know, they hate lollies, they hate shotas, they hate traps. Hate fucking basically everything. Alright? Literally anything edgier than My Hero Academia is too much for these people. And honestly, most of them complain about My Hero Academia too. Yeah, so it really is sort of an unfortunate situation how anime is getting completely destroyed by these kinds of people who hate the industry, who hate the art form, only watch it because it's popular, have no respect, no appreciation whatsoever. But anyways, though, that's about it for me. We'll have to see what happens in the future. Like I said, it seems really like the anime industry is going in this more international direction, which means we're going to be getting more of these kinds of safe, you know, boring shows, which is really unfortunate, like I said, but it is just kind of how things are going. At the very least, you know, on the bright side, even if anime does go to shit, there are so many fantastic older shows that you can go and watch. So there always will be that, but anyways, though, we'll have to see where the future holds. Because, you know, localizers were bad. Localizers are still very bad. But, I mean, bad localization is one thing, but now they're going to the source. You know? Now the source is getting hurt, too. Alright, so we'll have to see where it goes. But anyways, that's it for me. Thank you guys all for watching. If you enjoyed, like the video, comment your thoughts down below. Subscribe for more content. Yeah, thank you guys all for watching, and goodbye.